picking a physical space that you love is the way to kind of continue the fun on the wedding planning journey.
Hi, I'm John from PGP Wedding Films, and welcome to Say Yes to the Best, where we talk to the best wedding pros to give you wedding planning advice. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. We have new content out all the time to help you with your wedding planning. And if you have any questions for me or any upcoming guests, leave some comments below. Today, I'm talking to Kate Young of the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. How you doing, Kate?
Hi, John. So nice to be here with you. I'm doing great.
Thanks for being on the show. I know today you want to talk about venues like PAFA, where you're in maybe a big city. It's a museum venue that are a little bit different than kind of the country clubs or rustic venues you may find in the suburbs or in rural areas.
Yeah, the city of Philadelphia, I think a lot of cities are like this. We're jam-packed with kind of hotels, but also these really awesome, unique venues. I think that's the umbrella that we fall under. And that could be all sorts of museums. I think sometimes banks get repurposed as event spaces. And I myself work in a museum that specializes in fine art. So we have lots of paintings and sculpture that adorn the spaces where your event happens. So it can be really different to pick a venue in the city that maybe is a cultural institution on top of hosting events.
What are some of the big advantages of having your wedding right in the city like Philadelphia versus somewhere in the suburbs or maybe in a rural area?
I think the city offers, in the same kind of vein of why people want to live in a city, it might be some of those same reasons carry over into why you'd have an event in the city. So you have a really kind of dense collection of places to stay. So it's not even just hotels these days, it's Airbnbs and like luxury apartments that you can rent. And so we find ourselves just a couple blocks away from like 5 different really nice hotels and like another 5 kind of budget hotels. So we're just like swimming in places for your family to stay. We also have really great parking options. I know people don't assume that about a city, and sometimes if your family is coming from out of town, it might feel like a little scarier. But our space has 2 parking lots on our block, and we can set up valet. So it's just as easy, if not easier, than another kind of country venue where you're driving. And kind of on that driving theme, I think it's actually because weddings are so frequently surrounding alcohol consumption, it's actually quite a bit safer, in my opinion, to be in a city where people are limiting their driving. There's Ubers, there's Lyfts, there's actual taxis, or there's just walking, which is really safe in Philly and Center City. And that way your guests kind of get home safe without this kind of long trek to either make sure they stop drinking in order to do that safely, or if you're gonna problem solve for them and get a whole trolley. Everybody's been on that trolley coming back from a venue in the middle of nowhere, and it's really not that fun at midnight when you just want to be in your hotel bed, and now you're with all the drunk people. So there's so many good reasons. One of the other ones is that you're right in the middle of everything for lovely pictures. So with maybe a country venue, really that's the only place you have time to go. But in the city, like we have City Hall right in front of us, or we have the Rodin Museum or other parks really like surrounding our venue. So it kind of gives you this amazing opportunity to have lots of diversity and coverage from your photography.
You hit on probably my biggest pain point, not just with weddings, just in going to a city at all, because I've always said that convenient parking is happiness.
And for photography, do you find that you like having a little, like more options when you're in the city?
Oh, absolutely. It's really nice. All venues are nice, but it's nice when you can get kind of a different feel from location to location whereas one can be a little bit, you see all of the big buildings. Then if you go down to Old City, you have that feel. And then you have the Ray Street Pier, and it's all within a pretty close proximity, and you can get a lot of variety when you're in a city versus, like you said, when you're out in the country, you might have one place where you can go get pictures and video, and it might all kind of look similar, whereas in the city you can get such a variety. You can get so many different looks that'll just give you more options later on.
Totally. And one other thing is that sometimes it's nice to host folks. We actually tend to work with a lot of couples that either have left the city and but their family is close, or they went to school and met here. We get a ton of Penn alum and Drexel alum. So it's kind of like they get to show off the city to their friends and family, like why they loved it. It can kind of become a whole weekend of like, hey, we used to get cannolis over here, and come check out this bar that we met at. So it can really be a nice way to incorporate kind of your love story in the city into the celebration and not feel like you've just kind of picked a random spot that was pretty online.
Talking about the wedding itself, what are some of the differences a venue like yours in a museum, a kind of a cultural institution, differs from maybe a country club or another more typical venue?
So many things are different. First, you get kind of a totally different environment and character of the space. So that's for us, it's all about kind of creativity and art making, and like a mix of tradition and history and kind of new artists and their energy that they bring. So each of those cultural venues really has its mission behind it, and it can feel really nice to give your money to somebody that's going to take that money and use it to promote their mission. So we teach and educate artists and kind of expose people to fine art. And then let's see, other things, there kind of can be really a lot of logistical differences. So whereas like a country club, maybe you could have all day to set up. In a museum, we have to let the museum guests have their time. And then we actually have awesome teams that set up the entire wedding within 2 hours, usually less. And so we work with vendors that are accustomed to kind of working around those parameters and still doing really gorgeous work. So that can be something different. And I think the other thing that you get is a really different type of team that works in those venues. I'm sure every event professional is awesome and organized and should be friendly and make you feel like you're having a really great time planning your wedding. But I find that the cultural venues tend to hire folks that either were creative in their past life or, really have a passion for design or a particular type of the event planning that will really kind of lend something special. So for example, I was a musician. One of my caterers, she actually used to design fabric and sell it to Anthropology. So we're kind of event pros, but we also have like a richer background of why we got into events and what draws us to kind of a special space like the museum.
You mentioned logistical concerns. Other than just kind of having to maybe compete for time with the actual museum guests, are there any other logistical wrinkles that couples might not be aware of at a venue like yours?
Yeah, I think there's other things. So we have to be, in our museum, we have to be safe because we let you dine next to the big, famous, super expensive pieces of art that are priceless. So, which is really special. Most museums don't let you kind of hang out and drink in the galleries. So in order to do that, we kind of we have certain restrictions about certain types of flowers. We want to make sure that they've been kind of inspected, or maybe that they're not really puffy and dry and kind of, like a dry dandelion, like blowing all over the museum. So it's the kind of considerations like that we work with a florist on. We also can't have live candles. I think you'll find that throughout the city of Philadelphia, really in most spaces. With historic venues, everyone's worried about fire, so now they have these really awesome alternatives, which is great. They have a flame, they flicker, they don't look pumpkin-y and orange. So there's ways around that too, and we can make it feel very much like it's glowing. Let's see, other logistical things are just anytime you pick a unique venue, mine included or others, you're kind of asking the catering teams to almost kind of pick up from scratch. So, a restaurant or a hotel, they have a kitchen that's operating full blast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Ours doesn't. Like I said, we're really a museum, and we do have kitchen areas, but all that level of service and kind of extra plating and all the silverware and china and linens, all of that comes in the day or two before your wedding and then gets sent right back on a truck to the rental company after your wedding. So you're really entrusting a bit more, you're like putting a bit more trust in your catering directors to get all of that right and nail it. And that's why I think it's like a little bit more difficult, but also more special that it comes off really well. And we have 2 caterers that we entrust with that. We have 12th Street Catering and Constellation Culinary. And so I think at unique venues, you'll see that they've either they entrust one person, or they have like a small list of people that can actually do that safely in their spot.
If a couple isn't quite sure whether they want to go into the suburbs, into a rural area, or the city, what would you recommend to them to kind of figure out what's the right fit?
I bet somebody else has said this on your channel before, but I totally encourage you to go on lots of tours if you're a couple looking. There's kind of almost like, when it's the right person that you're going to marry, or women have this idea that they're going to put on a particular wedding gown or suit or dress, and they're going to know that it's right. I think a lot of my couples feel that way at the museum. I can see it on their face. It changes, and some of them cry, and they realize like, wow, I could have this for my wedding. So I think ideally you should feel kind of like that. It shouldn't just be a financial decision. And I'd say take the time to get actually on the phone with people. I know that I am also guilty of this. I don't love talking on the phone to just random people, especially about like what maybe my own personal goals are. But a phone conversation really is better than email when knowing who you're going to spend the next year plus interacting with, doing business with, sharing intimate details about your family and those dynamics and like everything that can happen with a wedding. You want to trust those people just as much as you fall in love with the physical space. And I think just picking a physical space that you love is the way to kind of continue the fun on the wedding planning journey. I think most people think it can be stressful, but it can be fun if you pick the right spot.
And what are some other ways that having your wedding at a venue like yours goes beyond just the wedding, but helps support the organization's mission?
Yeah, we're kind of living in a society now, which is awesome, that's a little bit more socially aware of where their money is going, and that's a lot of power. And yeah, all of the cultural organizations in the city, they sell tickets or have kind of public programs and have fundraisers, but we all do events because it's a really great revenue stream. That's the reason. And yes, we want to celebrate love and all of that, but my bosses, they're really interested in showing the museum to folks and getting a lot of exposure through our event rentals, and then of course supporting the institution financially. So I can't tell you how many times my couples say, I just feel so good that my money is going to an organization that's doing X, right? That is supporting the arts, supporting art students, and that they feel really much better about giving even a little bit more. We're not the cheapest in town, to us to kind of steward for them, rather than a venue that just exist to exist, and they pump out as many physical weddings as they can. And I think you'll find at most cultural institutions, you're one of maybe 10 to 30 weddings a year, not one of like 300 that a particular venue is doing. And so you get a lot more attention. You get to really know the institution. You get as many tours and attention and emails as you want. You don't have to feel like you're bothering some person that has a million other brides to worry about. So I think that's what makes me feel really good about my job too, is that there's not just the relationship with the couple, it's also their relationship with the institution. And I kind of get to be in the middle of that and helping that along.
Kate, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to get you there in person.
Kate Young of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. All of their information is going to be below. So if you're looking for a venue in the city that has a lot of amazing works of art, you can't go wrong with them. So again, all their information is going to be below. Thank you for watching Say Yes to the Best. Like I said at the beginning, please subscribe if you're looking for more wedding planning content. We have new episodes every week to help you. Thanks again, and happy planning.